Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Agni Oktaviani Saputri. My student ID is 10060016. I'm from class BBAA. So in this video I will explain about the Victorian period. This period are called the Victorian period because most of them coincided with Queen Victoria's reign. It was a time of peace during which important social change and rapid economic and technological developments flourished. This change constituted one aspect of the so-called Industrial Revolution. This revolution has both positive and negative aspects. At the early level of the negative is more visible. One of the most serious problems is the increasingly conspicuous distinction because rich and poor, between employer and laborer. Positive aspects of the Industrial Revolution are seen in increasing public property. With the increased property, intellectual activities increase. Natural science has found new wonders, such as electrical power, soon to be put to human use. What caused most excitement was the study of Charles Darwin, published under the title The Origin of Species, that proposed the well-known theory of biological evolution. In addition to the advance in science, education advanced and expanded as well as among the lower classes. As for the common characteristic of the Victorian period of literature, it may first be called prose. It is true that many meaningful rhymes are produced. The problems of that time seem to be unpacked on the prose, over which it seems to have been more encouraging. As public education expands, the number of periodicals such as newspapers and magazines increases, and the more advanced science is, the greater the number of scientific books on nature and on all aspects of human life. Typical Victorian poetry is the first of the normal decline of the lyrical and spontaneous spirit of the Romantic age, and it is replaced by the more serious tone and the tendency towards setting standards both in form and in content. Even the latter gave rise to a kind of futurism known as Victorianism. The dissipation of the lyrical and spontaneous will make poetry more brooding, wondering, and criticalizing. Social, scientific, and religious issues are subject to poetry. No more spontaneous movement resulting from a brief outburst of emotion. Every element of expression is not such as rhythm, the selection of words, and the melody, so that in this Victorian period there was improvement in poetic writing. The Victorian period is also often called the Tennyson period, not only because Alfred Lord Tennyson was one of the most prominent poets of all time, but because he was most sensitive to the problems of this day. One example of Tennyson's lyrics is The Princess, written is fresh blank and allusion to a current world problem, women's liberation. Tennyson was not spared of the problems that occupied his day, such as the advancement of science and the loss of the religious confidence he left excited at that time. Tennyson also tried to write a B drama but was underrated at Mount. Then Tennyson wrote short phrases that were as popular as the book, The Charge of the Light Brigade, The Oak, and Cruising the Bar. Next to Tennyson, Robert Browning was the most prominent poet in the Victorian period. This is an analogy between the two characters, that is, in the lexical elements of their verse. But if Tennyson voiced more of his day, the hopes, doubts, and anxieties of the Victorian society, Browning would be optimistic and confident that everything would work out in the end. Also in expression, Tennyson was more cheerful. This is hardly surprising for Browning man that this message was more important than the way it was delivered. Browning developed a character monologue, the drama that represents a one-man conversation. The most successful work of Browning are penned in this form, such as his writing in Man and Woman and Dramatic Persona. In his greatest work, it is The Ring and the Book. Probably the longest poem is English, and written is verse blank. Also applied to this method, Browning also wrote beautiful, easy, short lyrics such as My Star, Evelyn Hope, Meeting at Night, One Word More, Prospect, By the Fireside, and more. Browning's wife, Elizabeth Barrett, also a poet, was even more well known than her husband. It rhymes, contact, teaching, and sought as moral and social ideals were common in the literary works of the day. The cry of the children was protesting at the labor of children and was warmly welcomed by the community. Casa Guidi Windows is what many consider to be the best and is a combination of poetry and politics. The rapid scientific growth of this period led to a conflict in many people, an opposition between religion and science, between faith and doubt. The conflict is expressed in verse of Matthew Arnold. As a classical scholar of literature, his poetry is affected by its classical quality, are clear, simple, and controlled, and is more truth-driven than expressive. Arnold wrote some story poems including Sohrab and Rustam, and a number of elements and lyrics including Treatise and Dover Beach. Dante Gabriel Rossetti, a painter and poet, also known as the leader of the so-called Pre-Raphaelites. The term was first used by a group of painters who tried to restore the medieval simplicity and honesty they had seen in the works of the Italian painters before Raphael. Dante Gabriel Rossetti and his brother Cristina Rossetti, William Morris, and to some extent Algernon Charles Simbaume tried to apply the ideal of these artists to literature. One of the rhymes is the Blessed Damozel, containing the distinguishing features of the ideal pre-Raphaelitist, simple dream nature and containing many words that indicate colors of association with the sense. Prose was more produced in the Victorian period, also that literature is devoted to a purpose. Hence, the works of novel proceeded during that period here generally what are called problems novel. And because its purpose was to promote society in morals, they were also called novels. Charles Dickens was the principal creator of these novels. His childhood was one poverty to loneliness. When he reached adulthood as a talented actor, he could easily see dramatic possibilities in a wide range of situations, along with the dancing type characteristic of those he met, all of whom he recruited in his novel, perhaps with the necessary change in order to please his readers. A major goal of Dickens' novel is to rid society of flaws and to appeal to the conscience. The way he does it is to cause one another's sadness and joy. All of Curtis Dickens' novels are useful, easy to read. We will call here a few: Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, and Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectation. At the time of Dickens, there is well-known novelist that is usually associated with him. William Makepeace Thackeray. Among the Victorian novelists are several outstanding differences. Dickens come from poor, miserable families without a reasonable education, and Thackeray was well off and educated in the best schools and had even studied in Cambridge University. Dickens was romantic and emotional and interpreted the world mainly through his imagination, while Thackeray was a realist and a moralist who based his judgment socially on observation and meditation. The Thackeray work of satire, but his so-called best work was not satire, but a historical novel entitled Is Harry Esmond by Thackeray's also famous Vanity Fair, which expresses the wider views of the people around him and his hatred of falsehood. Some of the other novels of Thackeray are Pendennis, The Newlys, and The Virginians. Mary and Evans are famously by his George Eliot. The common trait of his novel was that he himself called psychological realist. It refers to the expression of the struggle of the soul, that is, motive, emotion, and overriding influence of offspring. George Eliot's most famous works are Adam Eliot, The Mill on the Floss, and Silas Marmer. This novel on country life in Britain, and they must also contain psychological analysis and moral discussions, such as were previously explained. Another feature that feels in George Eliot novel is an air of melancholy scene. For example, is the spiritual loneliness suffered by Maggie, the lead author of the novel The Mill on the Floss. Dickens, Thackeray, and George Eliot are viewed by many as the greatest novelists as the Victorian period with regard to the quality, number, qualities, and influence their work have on both society and other writers. The period produced far more novel than previous period, and most of their works reflect little or much of the influence of the three. Charles Read is many works include A Terrible Plague. Contrary to the gloom which covers Thomas Hardy's novel, we can be in the clear and refreshing air in the Robert Louis Stevenson works, but while we review this writer is the context of the situation of a reader towards the end of the period of factor which in between. Stevenson was one of the first authors to realize that the publisher of the change without expecting success. He has put a romance entitled Treasure Island into a paradise issue for the children, and then a publisher would dare to rise publishing the story in one volume in 1880 turns out to be an instant success and a very popular one in the new reader with a short novel on it immediately, also a short story that in America is known to Stevenson goes to write romance and other mystery stories. Is the New Arabian Nights, 1882 Crops, 1886 The Black Arrow, 1888 and The Master of Ballantrae, 1890. Following are some of the authors by the end of the last century that have been so popular that today is rather haggard. Mr. Humphrey Ward Colkane, Mary Corelli, and Edgar Wallace. This Victorian period is not only hugely productive in the works of the fiction but also in the non-fiction of the thousands of other authors. Here we will refer to just a few of the thousands of authors he refers called Charles Darwin. 1809 to 1892 with his most famous work of The Origin of Species, 1859, and The Descent of Man, 1871, that present the theory of biological evolution and the conception of human origin that defies the teachings of Orthodox religion and a general option, as well as the works of others natural science are Macaulay, famous literary essay on Milton and essay Bryan, as well as the main work of history 1848 to 1861. Thomas Carlyle was a serious and often somewhat angry writer of history, but for him, history was just one of the methods of communicating his teaching in 1833 for 1834. The French Revolution is 1837. On heroes and hero worship 1841, and past and present 1843. He also wrote a number of essays on British and German literary figures of such as Burns, Scott, novelists, and Goethe. As in the Romanticism of the Victorian period, there was no room for textual playfulness, for that is why it was in the case of the middle class, which at the time dominated British society in the 1870. There had been a slight change in the curriculum status, as Queen Victoria happened to be somewhat interested in this branch of the art. The best of the time were currently exemplified by the popular dramatist William Robertson. He first became famous for his play David Garrick, based on his novel, demonstrated elements of realism is very popular in 1867, publishing his main work as a text that, though it feels poorly, it's found to be quite successful when exposed. Thomas William Robertson, born 9 January 1829 in Newark-on-Trent, Nottinghamshire, English, died February 3, 1871 in London, an English playwright with a realistic social comedy and a pioneer job directing producer, helped build a late 19th century drama revival in England. Born to a theatrical family that played a provincial circuit based on the city of Lincoln, Robertson in 1848 moved to London to become an actor. In 1854, he was agented as a witch bearer at the Lincoln Theatres by Mrs. Patrice, an industrious and important manager. That was his job in perfecting and comedy. His family perfected after marrying in 1856. Robertson gradually left the world of acting for writing. Some of in adaptation and translation have been produced, and in 1861, one play called The Cantab, the first original drama, was enacted from 1865 to 1870. A number of drama produced by Mary and Squire Bancroft made Robertson famous. Society, Our Street, Play School, and the MP Brother themes suggested by those titles were only touched but they provided a conceiving picture of the social scale and were ruined by mere sentimentality. Many of the plays survived in the set, and casts were among the most frequent. Generally, Robertson's character can be identified as an individual. His plot is skillfully manipulated, and his character dialogue is easy and communicative. As the director Robertson emphasized perform in general, requiring adequate exercise attention to detail and assemble games. The strict domestic realism of drama and its method produce a border style in the 1860 known as cup and saucer that had a significant impact on the development of British theaters during the second half of the 19th century. Well, that was an explanation I gave about the Victorian period. I think that's all, and last, please forgive that all. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.